It's starting the video.
That's okay, I'll introduce it. Are we live streaming?
How does this thing work?
Yeah.
We're just working on some technical issues. You can't turn your phone while recording. Oh. Alright.
Are we on? Okay. Welcome everyone. The first class at Sabadayatam has started this morning. It's Geopolitics of the Internet with Professor Cameran Ashrafs from the CEU. So it's already underway. We're going to go in there and check out the what's going on. Thanks for joining.
You're not live streaming, right?
You feel like more into the topic as well. So I think that this can go both ways, and maybe also like, for example, in the case of Hungary, how we had the momentum when the CEU protests were there.
I know.
So, and like everybody can decide, I guess, whether that's a good thing or not. That we have like kind of a political like background as well and push, but it would like cause disturbance, I guess, because not everybody would necessarily like associate with that political part or like politics in any way. So that can be a device. Yes.
Sorry, everyone say hi. We're live streaming.
Hello. Yeah, it's cool. It's very exciting, right? Historic moment. I think this is the first time it's been done in Hungary. Something like this sort of free university that you see sometimes come up with protest movements typically. It's a kind of cool historic moment. Welcome to history. It's never something like it's fancy in the books. It's just something really quite ordinary. Like you might have upset stomach or you're kind of sleepy, but like that's how history happens. History's not particularly concerned with those things. You know, which is kind of cool. Like, very exciting stuff. Anyway. But yeah, so what I think one of the problems that you saw here too was CEU didn't take to these standards. CEU didn't take it. They were like, oh, we're not involved with this. We're staying neutral, and I think that was hugely problematic. I mean, if they're going to kick you out, that's when you start to. If you're going to fight, that's the time to fight, right? That's the time to stand up and to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked about it with the president of CEU, and he said that he did not want students to look, like, especially for media discourse, if we are paid by university to do so. When we are driving by our like natural desire to stand for ourselves, it's totally different than in case if it's organized by university. What was for me personally problematic is the emails that we all received, like with this particular wording. It's just another protest. University takes no position in that. I think that was too much.
Yeah, it's probably the last one.
Otherwise, a year ago we were throwing mocking banknotes with Soros portrait on it. On the previous protests, like protesting against these claims in the state media that we are like Soros funded protests, that Soros bought plane tickets. I remember we were drawing like big banner with a big plane, and it was saying Soros Airlines, and all volunteers were like Soros Air servants. So that was like a nice way like to break through this information bubble. Otherwise, I agree with university position to not get involved too much at this stage. However, I think it's a big problem that the professors did not go for strike. ELTA did strike, but Corvinus, Academy of Sciences and CEU so far not. And for me, this is problematic that colleagues do not show solidarity to their Hungarian colleagues who wouldn't be able to move to Vienna. And I personally think that there should be like the whole university strike, showing to the media that we cannot continue working like this until we are given the right working conditions. This is why on November 24 we were like, workers and students should unite because of attacks like this of everyone.
It's a good point. It's really problematic. This is how the opposition gets fragmented, right? This is 21st century frontline sort of fragmenting because the universities are dependent on various government grants or funding or having government approval or something like that. And then we can't jeopardize our grants, and rightly so, we can't jeopardize our livelihoods and so on and so forth, right? Because sometimes students are hired with grants, faculty are hired with grants, so on and so forth. So you can't jeopardize your livelihood precisely because the people you're protesting hold the purse strings. This is remarkable. 21st century is a sort of democracy way of sort of keeping everybody sort of segmented and quiet. And the one university that doesn't depend on it, like that's a plus of CEU. We don't really depend on this sort of stuff. We have that large endowment in a way and a lot more international connections. But then the flip side is that we depend on that we still need solidarity, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we had a similar experience while filming for one of our documentaries. the person that we were filming had a problem with CEU being mentioned because they get government and like ministry funding for their projects related to animal rights. And that was super problematic and probably the first kind of practical exposure to the pushback that you're going to experience in these kind of situations. So, but I don't fully disagree. I mean, maybe it's a little bit disenfranchised on my part, but I don't fully disagree with what Gladwell is saying in terms of this kind of ability to mobilize initially or have some kind of public statement where you're joining a bandwagon and you're not, but in situations like these where you don't necessarily need to know all the details, where people go out of their way to find out the extent of the problem. If you just need people to show up, then it's working, and I think it's important. I mean, I was telling these guys earlier, I've had similar experiences in Pakistan, in Sudan, and now in Hungary, and that's what's tragic for me, that I've traveled 3 different continents, and all of these problems are merging into one, and that's the only kind of depressing factor that I find disappointing, and yeah.
Which factors, like the academic freedom or the
Yeah, I
freedom
mean,
of
because
expression?
they had a teacher in Pakistan, and they were like, don't study Rape the Lock, which is an epic poem. I mean, not epic because it's great, epic because it's
The length, yeah.
And it's about the cutting off a hair of a piece. I mean, even if it's not, so they had a problem with that word and they banned it. Then in Sudan, they didn't want us to teach English because it's the language of the colonizer, whereas the students obviously want to be exposed and travel and explore and so on. And now in Budapest, no gender studies and no CEU. So I think for me, that's my personal. No matter where I go, no matter how developed or underdeveloped, all the problems are kind of merging into one.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I have similar experience because in my country, first university was University in Exile. It was caused by authoritative regime in my country, just by presidential decree, forced out of the country. I had to move to neighboring country, and it was a very long transition also. And it was like for us exploring the world because we're quite isolated. So from one side it was like positive side, from the other side studying in exile. It was literally saying in your diploma that it's Belarusian University in exile to Lithuania. Yeah, and I came to Budapest to study democracy, so I studied international relations and European integration for my country, for the benefit of my country. And this is when the migration crisis happened. And I was studying migration policy, and I was like, okay, let's move to safe haven. Let's not study at the State University in Hungary. Let's go for my master's to see. Now we are here instead.
The same thing.
Yeah, that's like,
This is when we talked in the very beginning of class, we talked about the 4 models of geopolitics, probably forgot it. Can you believe we only have, next week's the last class too, by the way, isn't it? Unbelievable. I feel like we just met each other, right? But anyway, when we talked about that final model, not final model, but sort of the contemporary position of geopolitics, world society, where there's this global these events happening globally, but they're all the same event. Like the similar conceptual event happening at the same time globally. It's a global awareness and things like that. And this is part of this whole bigger, we see it now, bigger trend, right? Your university, this university being kicked out or moving out and all this sort of stuff. Really quite disturbing, remarkable time. But then, okay, so how do you see the internet playing a role in what you've experienced? Just out of curiosity. Because you said you somewhat agree with Gladwell, so just for the sake of discussion.
I mean, no, I don't. I mean, I see his point.
Or you're sympathetic.
I'm sympathetic to what he says, and I'm considering there's a generation gap in what he's. But I do think that there's something to be said about people being able to voice their opinion. How far that goes in terms of how empowered you are, really, whether policy action actually occurs. And that disconnect is the real problem. I don't think the internet, social media platforms are to blame for that singularly. I definitely think that there always has been a gap between people who are making decisions and the people who are affected by those decisions. And that gap remains. Maybe we're more, our voices are more social media. Whether they're causing effect, I don't know.
But how do you, because all of you are studying, going to get master's degrees, going to enter, you know, with a master's degree, you're all going to be part of sort of the global educational elite, right? Even in the United States, less than 25% of people get a bachelor's degree. So, as master's degree, you know, you're already at the top sort of global education hierarchy. As people who are going to be making the decisions, like in a couple years, you know, like about 2 New Years from now, what do you think? Like now you're on the receiving end of a decision, of decision makers, people like you, people who study. Some of them probably your age. In the back of the age, you know, or even actually drafting this stuff, like how, or even, you know, young lawyers talking about, okay, how, who are eager to make a career, eager to make a mark. We're not blaming them. You know, of course, they want to provide for themselves, they want to pursue their passion, but they may be put in a situation where the government's like, we need to get this university out of here, you know, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there, you got to pay your bills, and you became a decision maker, and you have no choice. I mean, your choice is to be without a job, so that's always a choice, you know, but in practical circumstances, it may not be. So how do you feel? The soon-to-be decision makers, how has this impacted your thinking about making decisions? To feel how the decision impacts you, right? If you see what I mean, how public policy actually can impact people, because this is a public policy issue par excellence, really. I hate that phrase, but there's nothing else I can think of, so pardon me. Yeah.
I was deeply touched by 24th because for the first time someone in Hungary actually made a message during protest in English, talking to migrants from the West. Who the CU students are. I was like, okay, I'm a migrant here. Nobody in 5 years of my presence here ever addressed me in any kind of media channel. It's the first time that people actually to us as to resistance. And it was said that we have to protest for it. You know, even though we are legal migrants, the discourse already was formulated because the message itself was like, we understand, you know, that we want to stay. And I was so deeply touched. I was like, she's speaking to me. And nobody ever did here, you know?
Yeah.
And this is already a message itself.
Especially the sort of government-run ads and everything like that, which were so hostile to people who don't look, you know, who look like more like me. For instance, dark hair, dark eyes. There's all those. I don't know if you remember that. I have pictures of it. There's all these pictures of this sort of stream of dark haired, dark eyed people, like as a stop with a stop sign, as if they're going to like Eastern hordes, the old sort of mythology that we talked about. The foundation of Europe, remember, 1500s as a sort of collective identity was against these sort of barbaric sort of things, people, you know, stuff like that. But how impacted your way of thinking, how you'll do public policy, how you'll make decisions? Because this is real life school. This is the kind of stuff that'll get you further than any grade will.
I actually don't think we're migrants because that requires us to have more of a commitment to this country. We're like expats because
I would disagree with you because I was paying taxes. I was working in that state for 5 years. So I think in terms of mobilization, migrant itself is an expat who stayed for a period that represents 1 year in some definitions. In other definitions from the International Organization on Migration, it does not even specify how long we stay. You are anyway considered to be a migrant. So even our own understanding of what migration is like changing because of this discourse. We're trying to understand it. So I'm glad that it stimulates critical thinking in terms of our own identities. And I'm glad that maybe if we talk about policies, that we will re-evaluate the importance of education, of access to education, of access to funds for education, of establishment of independent sources of funding for the research, because now we see that depending on the source of research can be allowed or not.
Yeah, exactly.
At the highest research level, such as Academy of Sciences, I think there is nothing higher than this, because it's the
national
big tech for the PhDs. So,
yes.
We have a question from our live stream viewers.
Yeah.
Hello, live stream viewers. They would like to know the difference, I assume, between, maybe they can specify, I assume it's between expat and migrant. I guess they want us to discuss that. I have some personal thoughts on it.
Well, sure, start.
I think like expat is a very like, it's code for white person and privileged person. So I think it's like a very actually problematic term. But anybody else?
Migrant is a legal term, so first of all, like asylum seeking, which can lead or not to refugee status, is not the same as being a legal migrant, because as legal migrant you commit to certain set of procedures to become a migrant. It's a voluntary decision. Whilst when you are seeking for asylum, it's involuntary. You are forced to do it. And in terms of migration, you can be a tourist if your stay is under 90 days, which typically the Schengen or as other visa types are. Sometimes it's in UK it's 180 days, and everything that exceeds this period requires a separate legal document, which is called residence permit. So once you get residence permit for at least 1 year or more, you are becoming a legal migrant.
What my lived understanding of it is that with expat, I imagine someone who like is living for a country for a while, like living in a certain country for a while, but with the intention of like going back to his or her home country. Whereas a migrant is someone who is like permanently with the intention of like living there and settling there. So that's my view on the matter. And then I wanted to go back and go on the Gladwell article, and I was just like,
I'm still not done with that one.
yeah. Sorry, I just like so. What I feel like social media does these days, like, makes it very easy to like get numbers of people to like protest together, but it's also like very easy to like disperse those sort of movements as well. And that's where those like close ties that Gladwell was talking about kick in. So like it's important to have both, like going back to that hybrid sort of movement of like offline and online.
Yeah.
So like like even our own protests, like we had a lot of people like joining us, but if we don't have this close ties with university and like just like close connections to each other, then we're just gonna go home and like not do much about it the day after, just forget about it. So
Do you think part of the problem is that there's no coherent message for a lot of the protests? Like, what's the message?
exactly. And then going back to like the civil movement that Gladwell was comparing it to.
Yeah, that was a very distinct message.
Exactly. Just like, and then going back to those hierarchical structures and networking. So like in networking, as we said, there's like a lot of people, but there is like no leadership to like set the agenda. So what's problematic with that is that even though like people gather up and like there's like a huge number of people, there is no political change or like policy change that comes with that, because there is no set of goals or like no leadership to like work toward that. So it's like pretty chaotic, I'd say, in a sense. Whereas with the civil movement in the US, like that was like very goal oriented and yeah. So maybe a combination of the two.
And I think with the civil rights movement, one of the important parts that is not discussed is the fact that the people who were organizing could move to states in the United States where they were free and safe to operate. If you're working in a dictatorship, the internet might be the only way you can forge strong ties. You can't actually risk meeting in person, or it's a lot harder to meet in person. You know, in the United States, they could go up to the northern states, which were more liberal, and meet. But there was still relative freedom of movement. This is what Gladwell. When you compare like Iran, to the civil rights movement, for example, or Egypt or something like that, you can't compare, because there wasn't a relative freedom of movement in part of the country, like legal freedom of movement in part of the country. We're not saying like some people were more liberal or something like that, just regionally, but the law was still the same. In the United States, the law was different in different states. There wasn't this sort of segregation and things like that. So yeah.
Like when I was reading this article, I was always thinking about Maidan in Kiev, and I thought that it completely contradicts everything written there, because if there was no social media, we wouldn't be gathered. But when we were gathered not because of the strong ties and because someone else was standing there, but because we just saw the message, and this message we felt that like we have to go, and our parents have to go, and the young people have to go. And the fact that our Maidan, all people say that Maidan was completely horizontal, so there was no leaders, and we are actually proud of it, because like when during Orange Revolution there were leaders, like people got disappointed in it. But here it was like people will, and we're responsible for the all changes happening in our country, in our city. So I didn't feel good after reading this.
And also like
Go ahead. Arif had his hand up first.
Yeah, I just wanted to make
Oh, no,
immediate response.
hang on. Arif had his hand up first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering that in terms of implications of this kind of social media born unrest, there have been instances when things have gotten heated on Facebook in terms of social revolutions, people getting riled up for the cause, and then on the offline arena, because of Facebook, they get together and the protest gets violent.
Yeah.
And I forgot the instant when there was this uprising somewhere because of what was organized on Facebook, and a few people died.
Yeah.
And then Facebook was taken to court in terms of not doing enough to stop acts of violent protest which were organized on Facebook. So Facebook was accused of helping or allowing, giving them a platform of violent protest. However, on the other side, we see that Facebook really did help us here, where it allowed us to get this message across that we're doing this and people are gathering. So the takeaway from that I get is that, do we entrust this upon Facebook to decide what's a worthy social cause or what's not a worthy social cause? And how do we adjudicate between what could be beneficial, what could not be beneficial, where there could be fatal harm to people, and what needs to be curbed and what needs to be allowed? Because if people are taking Facebook to court to stop such social revolution or people coming together with a popular voice, but wasn't that the exact thing that we were hoping to achieve from Facebook in this arena? So how do we conflate these two things and come to a conclusion?
And what is terrorism, and what, with regards to this stuff? If a country's not democratic, it's within the scope of the law to say you can't have any protests. But exactly, Facebook gets stuck in a way. I think that's a really good point, David. After Bella's comment, then we can go back to that. That's a really good point. Yeah.
I just wanted to make one that, like the social media, if we talk about Ukraine, we know that tonight there was attack on Ukrainian naval forces.
Yeah, this
You can
morning.
see
Yeah.
6 people died. And whatever.
I think it's a pretty big difference.
I think there is no difference in terms of the attack on
There was an attack,
the
yeah.
ship. And today the CE was to go to the Russian embassy to make a protest in front of the Russian embassy.
Right.
Because for me there is no difference at this point whether the person died or wounded. If there is attack with the weapon use, I want to put one myself. So this is already alarming sign. Because when we talk about borders and internet, let's look at the example of the open sea. We have only a certain amount of nautical miles which determine the legal ability of the sea to the particular coast. And everything which happens in the open sea is the same as if it's happening in the internet. It's like kind of belonging to everyone and no one.
Right.
And at the same time, how do we determine this responsibility? What belongs to what? It's like internet providers belong to states just like chiefs, right?
I want to respond to your question about policy. Now that we're in this position,
You're soon to be all part of the elite. You already are elite economically, in terms of if we look at global wages. Soon you're to be part of the elite.
and that goes to the part about defining expat, which is it's the amount of privilege that you have. Because let's say you are a white guy from England and you are a brown person from India, and you sign the same contract at the same tech firm in Silicon Valley. You're both expats. People might label you differently because of their own perceptions of privilege. But you are the same, you're signing a 3-year contract or a 5-year contract, you're with a nice tech firm. After that, you can decide what you want to do. Maybe you go to another tech company in another country, or you stay there. It comes down to the amount of privilege you have. So I think that when we accept all of this responsibility as being part of the educated elite, it's like what we do with our privilege. If you can step in and take a stand because you can afford to lose your job, then you ought to. But if you can't, if you decide I have children or I can't afford to do this, maybe you should have some flexibility with yourself.
I think it's good. Sorry, go ahead.
Flexibility with yourself to maybe not take the stand. I mean, sometimes you just have some duties to the people you're obligated to, children.
I think it's very nice and important to see yourselves as the elite. We often think of the elite as like Bill Gates, You know, and then you just keep passing the buck. Oh, it's not me. It's not me. They're the elite. You know, and it keeps going up and up. And you read this stuff where, you know, if you ever read stuff about how the wealthy see, like, the millionaires think it's the people who have 10 million euros that they're rich. Oh no, the people who have 10 million think it's the people who have 100 million. No, they're rich. You know, there's no end to this sort of not wanting to take ownership of who you are. Like, it's difficult to think like, man, you are all very soon going to be at the top of the world's educational game, right? Top of global politics, really. If you think of top as just Trump or Putin, I mean, that's sort of a reductive way to really sort of cop out of where you are, who you are, where you're at. So I think really wrestling with this idea of, you know, you are suited to join the elite, you already are, and you're even going to move higher with the elite ranks is really, really important. Because as long as elites are out there, you never actually have to wrestle with the implications of your decisions. But if you realize, I am the elite, we are the elite, well then it's a different ballgame. Then you can't pass the buck. Then you can't just be like, oh, it's their problem. It's their problem. Oh, it's my boss, not me. And then your boss like, oh no, it's my boss, but not me. And then their boss like, no, it's my boss, but not me. And then where does it stop? You know what I mean? So it's really a good thing to wrestle with this idea of who's an elite, who's not. Yeah.
Could I just have Adrian or somebody who speaks Hungarian? We have a comment that's in Hungarian. I just need someone to read it, and maybe we can respond. Maybe we can.
Yeah. Thank you for the Hungarian question.
Maybe they're sad that it's in English.
Oh, can I?
Yeah.
I have my glasses. Yeah. Let me just.
Yeah.
But it's not a question, but they are wishing you like a nice day, and like that all of the youth here looks really good, but they think that probably this is like not enough to change the current policy issue that we are talking about here with the Hungarian government. Basically, this is what they said.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was not really a question. Yeah.
Well, thanks for your support. Kusi. We'll have another lecture later on in Hungarian, and hopefully, if the battery holds out, we can live stream that as well.
So I think that actually sort of feeds back into a little bit the Gladwell. If we think sort of teleologically, like a protest has had an outcome, that actually can be a toxic way of thinking, right? It's a sort of transactional way of thinking. If you think you don't say I love you to somebody because you want something out of them. You say I love you to them because you love them, right? You protest because something upsets you. You get out in the street because it matters to you. Maybe something will or will not happen, but that's really quite often beyond your control too, right? Because we can't live life, you don't live life in this transactional, it's an insane way to live. You know, I do this for you, you give me that. Like, who lives like that? It's a very important aspect to recognize. There's also the goal-setting aspect of protest, absolutely is important, but also the realization that the goal may or may not happen, it may or may not be there. So you have to be sure you're there for something else as well. Because if it's just like that, that's where you lose the momentum of a protest. That's where you lose the momentum. Because the goal was to realize you set yourself up to fail. You set yourself up to fail. I'm going to hit this goal. I didn't get it. I'm a failure, right? I didn't get a six-pack by summer. You know, I didn't get $1 million by the time I'm 30. I'm a failure. It's crap, right? I mean, it's important to have something to shoot for, but you don't just buy into it and then sort of retreat when it doesn't get realized, right? This is how these protest movements become sustainable, like Tahrir Square, for example. When there's sort of this broad direction we're moving, but we're here because we care. Right, that was the power of that movement, for instance. There was a specific goal, but the goal wasn't like by this date, and then we're going to disperse and go back to our lives. Yeah,
going back to the elite points.
Yeah.
Like
as a member of the elite.
Yeah, as a member of the elite, but like at a time when there is quite like a segment of the society that is disenchanted with the elite. Like, do we even want to be the elite anymore? In the sense that like you don't want to make real change, and when there is this disconnect. Like, do we want that anymore? Like, if we really are aiming to make some change, like communicate to this like pretty big part of the society. Like in Hungary, for example, I feel like there is definitely a disconnect. So like being part of the elite doesn't seem to be working in the sense that like no political change is coming out of it.
And this gets back to some of the other points earlier about social media and not Arif's points about social media not meeting people where they're at, right? Because it's oftentimes social media is also stratified by elite interests. You know, if you like this sort of like, you know, more, let's say, in-depth academic journals or for something, or more thoughtful policy analysis journals, that puts you at an elite. So even the technological aspect that we're talking about here kind of puts you at an elite level right off the bat. Even the using Facebook puts you at an elite level. You know, who you like, how many friends you have on Facebook, for example, your network, your community. There's all sorts of levels of elitism. Yeah, so there was some other, yeah. Ken's hard to see because she's got the
I have something to say quickly about that in terms of like followers and the ability to build a movement, because we have in our own little movement here, we just started a Facebook page and it's really made a difference or we just started a Twitter page and it's really made a difference where we post certain materials. So our Twitter only has like a couple hundred followers at this point. So every time I put something out on Twitter, I need to find like influencers to amplify the message there. And then because we have this like I Stand With CU page, which has like several thousands of followers, I think, like tens.
30,000.
Yeah, like 30,000 followers. That's much quicker and much easier. And then we don't have to sort of like beg, hey, journalists, will you please share our content? Or like, hey, political influencers, will you please share our content? So like the ability to get the message out is very much contingent upon who you know, which I guess is also life. But
And I guess it's also like depends on the country context, because for example in Hungary I don't think that Twitter is so popular like in the US or I don't know like which other countries use that, because in Hungary I even like among my friend circle I don't know a lot of people who have like this Twitter handle, so that might be also like
we have another comment in Hungarian.
Great. So Albert, you had your hand
From Dory.
While we're sorry. What was the Hungarian comment here?
Yeah.
So we're gonna take a
Yes,
break.
long one.
It's going to be a break time of 4 minutes. We'll take a 20-minute break as usual.
So it's not directly connected to this one, but they are saying basically hi to, and they are asking if there is a possibility at 5 o'clock to have the Barát Erzsébet session live streamed as well.
Ah, the 5 o'clock one.
Yeah.
What is that?
They're saying that there are lots of people.
That's cool.
And who's this?
And then we have another comment saying that we are really interested in the youth's future, so this is why we're watching it. So there are some people.
How awesome is that?
Yeah, so the Barát Erzsébet's session at 5, they would like to live stream because she's from Szeged. She's teaching actually the university there.
Okay.
In the university,
And
so-
she wants it to be live streamed tonight.
Yeah, lots of people
Okay.
probably from that university would like
And we
to
have
see.
all the heart emojis going on right now.
That's awesome.
So
All right.
give it up for heart emojis.
Let's take a 20-minute break. It's 10:40.
um,
So we'll be back at 11. You know, the usual break that we have now. Nice to be live streaming this. This is super cool.
Dory will try to live stream. Hopefully, I'm the one with the unlimited data, so I will try to keep my battery well in tune. Thank you everyone for joining our live stream. We're gonna take a break now. We might come back, we might not. I guess we'll discuss.
Yeah, we'll be back in hopefully in about